Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren. I am a geometric artist in Milwaukee. Um, Today, we are going to be making geometric compositions. So composition is kind of a grouping of elements that make up a piece of artwork. So it's arrangement, placing things together. Today we're going to be doing a collage. So that's very much putting things together. So what are we doing first? I am going to show you some images of artists who make geometric work. So I'm just going to share my screen so you can see some famous people who have made geometric work in the past. The first one is Freehand. So he does, this is all paint. Zoom in too. This is all paint. He makes a whole bunch of different shapes in his work. So these are kind of inspiration for shapes that we can make today. The other one we have is Kandinsky. A picture of him actually. He is a Russian painter and he does super cool stuff like this, kind of chaotic random shapes all over. So these are some more shapes we can think of using today. There's a lot of arcs in his and a lot of straight lines. And then the other one is Pete Mondrian, and he can blow that one up a little bit. He does very like clean stuff, and he uses a lot of primary colors like yellow, blue, and red, and then the white and black a lot too. So those are some artists who make geometric work. I'm going to show you an example of something we're going to make today. So these are kind of like a combination of all of those artists, kind of random lines, random shapes. So we're gonna try to focus on stuff that has a lot of contrast. So like this one in particular has a lot of contrast, meaning these are very opposite in color. So it kind of makes it pop. So we're gonna look at that. And then lines, there are a ton of different kinds of lines that we can make. And I have some examples of lines. There's some examples. We can do horizontal, vertical, diagonal. There's squiggly, zigzag. So you can play around with some of those. And then shapes. There are lots of different shapes. Here are some examples that we can try. You can see that okay. Circles and triangles, squares. You can get some experimental shapes down here going. So what we're going to do is we can start the project. Okay. So I think how we should do this is you have all of these colors. So we can either sketch stuff out or we can just go for it. Let's sketch stuff out first, and then we can do some more freehand stuff. So you can use your ruler if you'd like. I use rulers a lot in my art. So maybe first, let's just do a couple squares. So I'm gonna make 3-inch squares. And then Here's an inch. Another inch. Okay. There's some ruler practice if we have youngsters out there who haven't used a ruler yet. So we'll just cut these out on the line. Doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Okay. So we have 3 purple squares. And now, like we were talking about contrast, let's look at the purple against the other colors we have. So we'll try this first just to see something that doesn't have a lot of contrast. It has some, but these are not quite as different as something like this, which has a lot more contrast. These are a lot more opposite from one another. These are actually complementary colors, meaning they have the highest contrast of all of the colors on the color wheel. So I think we should make a little design composition with purple squares and yellow lines. Let's look at our line sheet. I think I'm gonna think of contrast for the shapes also in addition to the colors. So what is the most different than the square? I think I'm gonna try wavy lines. So let's cut out a few wavy lines. So obviously can't use a ruler for this because they're not straight. Because we're sketching stuff out for this first one, let's make some wavy lines on the page. Be as wavy as you'd like. So let's do this so we can cut it out, and then we'll do wave right here. Let's cut that out. So I think it's easiest to cut out a whole piece. So you're not working with this huge piece of paper. So we're going to cut along this line. Again, great experience for a young person who might not have a ton of scissors experience yet. Make sure you have an adult helping you. If you're pretty young, still use scissors. Cut along this line. These are pretty small right now. I think for the next design we'll make the shapes a little bigger so it's easier to cut. So there's our first wavy line. Let's do another one. It doesn't have to be the exact same shape or amount of waves. Let's just do another one here. Pretty similar. So they're not exact. I think that's good. There's more variation or difference. Wavy lines are harder to cut than the squares for sure. Okay, so let's put this stuff off to the side. Let's try just with these shapes right now and see how it looks. So because there are so many different shapes and lines, there's so many things we can do for this project. Arrange the stuff here. Okay. So we have our purple lines, our purple squares. Something I forgot to mention, and I'd like to show you. I'm going to share my screen now. I'm just switching the screen real quick, guys, because I want to show you an example of overlapping, which is common in collaging. So these artists I showed you before, Kandinsky, he does a lot of overlapping in his work. So you see this arc or curve is overlapped by this line. This triangle has a circle on top of it. So it's very much like collage, and you can obviously do overlaps in any kind of artwork. And same with Leger. He has these circles overlapping the arcs and the lines. So what I really like, and what you saw in this is I did some overlapping. This line overlaps with this line, this overlaps with this, overlapping here, and that kind of adds to the contrast because the colors are right next to each other and the shapes are on top of each other. So let's play with that a little bit. So I'm going to glue these squares down. And my suggestion is grab another sheet of white paper where you can glue your shapes so you don't get glue all over your final piece. So I actually didn't need to glue this one first, but I'm just going to put that down there. And then, let's see, now that I have one glued, let's see what it'll look like if we put one square here. We'll kind of fit it in that little squiggle. We can play with the squiggles too. And then, check it out. Let's put this here, fit in that with that squiggle. And then put that there. Makes a little squiggle design. So, like I said, you can be really playful with this. A geometric composition is literally anything involving geometric shapes. I'm going to put that there. We're not playing with overlapping yet. The second square. Fit the corner right into that little squiggle. And the third square. Put the corner into that little squiggle. So this is kind of a random design, but I think it'll be even more exciting if we put one of the squiggles here. And then we'll really start getting some cool collaging. So we're overlapping some shapes now. I'm gonna glue this down. I'm kind of again playing with the squiggle. We're putting this shape kind of into this little curve. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is make some more squares to kind of add on to this. So this time I'm not measuring. I'm just gonna try to make them the same size. I'm gonna overlap this squiggle, oops, with this square, like that. Let's try that. So this is kind of our first trial run, just to kind of start playing with shapes and lines and colors. I think I'm gonna stop there for now, and then we're gonna try something new, because I think what's so fun about this activity is there's so many things to do. Let's try another one. Let's look at our shape sheet. Here. So I think what I'd like to do is make something in the style of Piet Mondrian we looked at before. He is the Dutch painter. So he uses, as you saw, he uses a lot of rectangles. So that's here. So I think we should cut out some rectangles. And since Piet Mondrian uses a lot of primary colors, we're going to use those. So let me put my cap on my glue, which you should also do so it doesn't dry out. We do our cutting. So the primary colors are blue, red, and yellow. And they're called primary colors on the color wheel because these make the other colors in the bag, orange, green, and purple. So let's just talk about color mixing real quick because this is a good opportunity to do that. Blue and yellow. I can't hear people's answers, but can anyone guess what yellow make? They make green. Let's try another one. Does anyone know what what red and blue make? They make purple. And the last one is red and yellow. They make orange. So if we were using paints right now, we would be able to see how all those colors mix together and make the other colors. So back to Piet Mondrian and our rectangles. I'm gonna grab our primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, and we're gonna make some rectangles. So let's play with the ruler for some rectangles, and we'll do freehand rectangles for another set of rectangles, just so we can get experience with both freehand drawing and the guided drawing with the ruler. So let's measure these out. Let's make a 2-inch line, and then let's make another 2-inch line. Go from 0 to 1 to 2. And let's make another 2-inch line. 0 to 1 to 2. Okay, and then for the width of the rectangles, since the rectangle is one long side and one short side, let's do this side as 1 inch. Because 1 inch is shorter than 2 inches, so that'll make our other side short. There's 1 inch. And there's another 1 inch. Let's do that on the top. The rectangle needs to have 4 sides. This is our third side. That's the top of our rectangle. And then I'm going to spin my paper and we're going to do the last side of the rectangle. That's 2 inches. 2 inches. Great. So those are our 3 measured rectangles. And I think let's cut those out first before we do our other freehand rectangles. So I'm going to cut out this chunk. I'm not dealing with this big piece of paper. I'm just going to cut out all of the sides. There's one rectangle. Another rectangle. Anyone can hear any drums in the background? There's some drums playing here too. Lots going on today. All right, so those are our 3 yellow rectangles. Let's make another set of rectangles in the red color. So these I'm going to do freehand, which means we're not using ruler, we're just using our eyeballs to make some rectangles. So we can make them the same length and width. So I'm just going to use that kind of as a guide. And the reason I like to do this is for the people who don't really like using rulers. And they kind of want to do more their own thing. Rulers can also be kind of time consuming because they're so exact. So this gives us the opportunity to kind of more use our eyesight. And you'll see the lines aren't as crisp and straight. Using your eyesight to get the same length and width. It's hard to tell what exactly an inch is here. There. Those are our freehand rectangles. I'm going to cut out a chunk again. Okay. These are the 3 rectangles I just cut out. Our red, our yellow. See how those have a lot of contrast? They're very different in color. And then I'm gonna cut out some blue. This is a little different than what Pete Mondrian does, but he usually on a piece of paper. I'll show you what we're thinking we'll do. He does a lot with kind of rotating rectangles around. Rotating means you kind of turn it the other way. So I think let's just play around with this real quick so I can show you what I'm thinking we'll do here. So he kind of does stuff like this. With some lines in the middle. So we've done our shapes here. Now let's do some lines. Usually Pete Mondrian would do these lines in black, like in between these shapes, but we're gonna do blue because that's a fun color and we also don't have black in our bags. So I'm gonna play with all the primary colors. Do a couple lines with the ruler. And now we know, this is I guess the good thing about a ruler. Now we know how long our rectangles are. So to get a line in here, we know that we need to make a 2-inch line. So we're gonna do 2 inches. Another 2 inches. And then let's just do one more. Actually, let's just do 2. One here and one here. And then we'll do a 1-inch line because we know from measuring these rectangles that this is 1 inch. Let's just do 1 inch. There's 1 inch, 1 inch, so we could put one here and here. Let's do another one here. We'll do 3 1-inch lines. And then to cut them, we need them to have some width. So let's make the width, make it kind of technical here. You can learn about how to use a ruler. There's 1 inch, and then this big line in between 0 and 1 is a half. And then the bigger line between the 0 and that half is a quarter. So let's make a quarter width. We're gonna do that. Just gonna mark it. We're 1/4 inches right at the top of the 1-inch line. Those are the widths of our rectangles. And then I'm just gonna connect them this way. And I guess let's just do these other ones before we start cutting. These are 2-inch lines. Make those the same width also. Oops. Okay. All right, let's cut out our lines here. I think we can cut the whole way through these. These ones are kind of little also, so be careful not to snip your finger. Okay, so those are our 1-inch lines. And then I'm going to cut my 2-inch lines. Okay. Scraps. This is my 2-inch line. Okay, let's look at the spaces in between our rectangles. I have set up like this. So we're going to put the 2-inch line right here next to the other 2-inch rectangles. Let's start gluing some stuff. I'm going to glue this yellow rectangle first. I'll glue this red rectangle. Next. A little trick, check it out. If you don't want to get glue all over your hands picking this up, I like to just doop and pick it up with a glue stick. The glue can get sticky. I'm just going to throw the rectangle right here. And let's get our 2-inch line. 2-inch line, we're going to put it right next to the 2-inch triangle. All right, so I think what I had was a red rectangle here. Let's do that. Then we're going to put this line under here. So we're just filling in the spaces between the rectangles with blue. Here's our red rectangle. And squeeze it in there. And now we'll grab our blue 1-inch line. And squeeze that in there. I wanted a little bit more white space between those, but I didn't find all well. So those are all fitting together nice. So let's do another rectangle there. Now we can see the difference between the yellow and red rectangles, because remember we did this one with a ruler, we did this one freehand. So by eyeballing it, I made these not quite as thick, those red ones. But that's why I like to show the differences, because some people don't want it to be exact. And both ways are great. So I'm gonna put a little white space in there for our blue line. Our blue line in there. And I'm leaving some room here because we want to put our other 2-inch line there. Like that. So put that one in. I'm trying to glue on the side that does not have, or gluing on the side that does have pencil marks, because then when we flip it over, we won't have pencil marks on our shapes. Let's do one more right here. And then we'll throw this one in, probably let's do right there. I really like to make art that isn't totally planned out. Kind of like to make art as I go along, because I really value the process of making art. Some people prefer to have it planned out, and that works too. So here's our 1-inch line that's gonna go in between these two. And then I think let's put this one right here. We could cut another 2-inch line and put it here, but I'm gonna keep that white because Pete Mondrian had some white space in his work. So we're gonna put some white space in ours. What I really like about geometry is that it can create shapes that look like other things we see in everyday life. So this looks a lot to me like the, gosh, I'm gonna get it wrong, Norwegian flag, I think that is. So that's what's cool about this, I think. Okay, so I think we have time for one more, and this one is gonna be a little larger scale. My samples obviously are kind of on the small side. These are on the small side. So let's do a big one. It's gonna fill up the entire white page. Let's grab another piece of paper. And what I'd like to do is do it in the style of Kandinsky. So I'm actually going to share my screen again. Sorry, everyone. Okay. All right. So we have, already looked at this guy. Kandinsky. So we had talked about these little arcs or curves, really either one. We're gonna make some of those. And then we're gonna make some straight lines. We're gonna make them thinner this time, and we are not going to use the ruler. Because as you can see, he doesn't really have the exact same measurements on all his lines. They're kind of random. So we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Good. So let's do, he uses a lot of random, I don't know if they're random on his end, but they appear to be just a whole bunch of colors. So we're just gonna pick a whole bunch of colors. Let's do orange. He doesn't necessarily use a certain set of colors like Pete Mondrian does with the primary colors. So for these, we obviously can't use a ruler because they are not straight. These are not geometric shapes, they're more organic shapes. So I'm just gonna draw an arc that he does. I'm gonna do it big, because we're doing bigger shapes this time. And then I'm going to make it, I don't know, a 1/4 inch width, or however wide you want it to be. Then we're gonna connect those. And let's do another one. We can do them side by side so we can get them around the same size. They're not gonna look the same, and that is okay. If we wanted to use something like a ruler, there's something called, well, I guess you could use a protractor. That's not exactly what it's used for, but you could also use a stencil, which we do not have, but that's also an option. Let's cut these out. And then we'll decide if we want to make a couple more. And cutting out these big chunks so I don't have all this paper to deal with. And cutting. So we want to cut as safely as possible. Just gonna cut along the line. Okay, there is one of our arcs. And actually what we could do, this is also kind of something Kandinsky uses, is we can use that as a shape because he had half circles. So it'd be, if it continued this way, it would be a whole circle because an arc is a half of a circle. So let's use that as a shape too. And we don't have to cut more. I'm gonna cut here. Okay. Here's our other half circle, and here's our other arc. These are easier to deal with because they're a lot bigger. And actually, we're gonna do something else. We are, well, sorry, changing my mind. Okay, so let's actually make some lines. And let's do it with, since we already used a lot of the primary colors, the blue, yellow, and red, let's use the other colors, which actually are called the secondary colors. That's the orange, green, and purple. Let's do some lines in these. And like I said, we are not going to use a ruler for these. So I'm just gonna cut a chunk here, smaller paper to deal with. Let's do some big lines. They don't have to be straight. We're just cutting a line, just a big piece. And we can vary the widths. We can vary the angle of them. So I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna kind of make it wider up here. Because I want to. And that's what we do with art. We do whatever we want to create whatever you want. That one's kind of long too, or kind of wide, I mean. And then let's do a couple narrow ones with the purple. There are green lines. That chunk. So now we're gonna do really thin lines. They're obviously shorter than the green ones by a lot, a little bit. I'm gonna have a variety of shapes and sizes of lines too. Let's do one more, so we have 4 of each color. All right. So now let's kind of play around with this could look like. Kandinsky, the guy we just looked at, kind of has half circles like up there. I think in the painting we're looking at, he had like one just kind of hanging out down here. Then he had some arcs that were right next to each other. I'm gonna do that. And you can join me in doing that if you would like, or you can put them anywhere on your page. And then I think he did a lot of overlapping, as we talked about earlier with overlapping. So I'm gonna grab my 2 lines that I made kind of wider. I'm gonna put them right next to each other, like that. So let's glue those down. Because I like the way that looks. There's a lot of contrast, again, as we've been talking about. Here's our big arc. Also, by the way, you do not need to have these same shapes. I am simply guiding you, but you can do whatever you want with your artwork, your art. Here's this big line. And we can put this one there or anywhere. I like the way it overlaps because it adds some dimension and contrast. And kind of move that around. There's no right or wrong way. I'm just kind of putting them wherever. Okay, so I think what would be cool is if these arcs, or at least one of the arcs, kind of intersects with this line. So I think I'm gonna do that. If you would like to join me with doing that, we can glue this one down. I'm gonna throw it Right there. And then, because the painting we were looking at had the arcs right next to each other, I'm going to do that. So let's glue this other arc down. And meet up the corners there. Smooth it down. Okay. Now, let's bring in our purple lines. There are 2 remaining green lines. Grab some purple lines. And Kandinsky, the artist, he kind of threw his lines diagonally a lot of times too. So I think let's do 1 purple line right there. A diagonal line like he liked to do. I don't remember how I had that. Here-ish. And then a lot of times he had intersecting lines, which means they cross over each other. And that. Let's do 1 there. And then we'll find a place for this half circle here and the other lines. I'm going to have it overlap with this arc. I like the contrast. All right. Now, let's just find a place for this half circle really quick. I think we originally talked about it going there, so I'm going to do that. We'll fit it right into that little corner. And again, if you don't want pencil lines on your final shapes, make sure you glue on the side that has the pencil lines, because then we're kind of hiding those. Okay, let's just throw these in wherever. This is your time to pick wherever you would like this line to go. I'm going to put it here. You can join me in putting it there or elsewhere. Same with this line. I would like there to be some green down here. So I'm going to put that here. And there's nothing through here right now, so I'm going to throw something right through here. Maybe I'll let it intersect with this. I don't know if Kandinsky really had that many lines intersecting, but we are going to do it. Let's do that. That kind of creates a fun shape. The center right here. And then let's do our last green line. Okay. Now, I'm just going to throw that right there. I want there to be a little piece of green in the middle. We got some good overlap going on here. So we can keep going with this, we're out of time today, but I encourage you to continue making shapes and filling this whole thing in, because there's a lot of white space that we could still fill in, or it's okay to leave the white space. I really like it this way. And so these are all our geometric compositions. Let's look at them and be proud of them. So we got this one. These are all abstract pieces of artwork, which means they don't really depict anything in particular. They're just kind of whatever you want to make, and that's why I really like abstract art. So thank you for joining me, everyone. Have a great Saturday.